Welcome to the voices of transparency and excellence. We're not pivoting, the world is spinning like a top. Let's stop, figure things out, get some answers. Come with us on this ride. Warm regards, Rick and Judi.
Welcome to our podcast series where we address crucial topics impacting the campus and community. I am Judi Brown Clarke, and I am here with...
Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Gatteau, Vice President for Student Affairs, and today we're joined by Robert Harrison, the founding endowed director of the Institute for Advanced Computational Science at Stony Brook University and professor of applied mathematics and statistics. Robert's been appointed interim executive director of New York State's first in the nation Empire AI Consortium. This initiative is intended to promote responsible research and development, create jobs, and unlock AI opportunities focused on public good in New York. The consortium comprises SUNY, CUNY, Columbia University, Cornell University, NYU, and RPI, as well as philanthropic backers such as Tom Secunda and the Simons Foundation.
Welcome, Robert. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Now, we just kind of talked about the Empire AI Consortium. And we know that the only way you can answer some of these incredibly complex and wicked problems is bringing together thought leaders and interdisciplinary businesses and so on in a way in which you create this kind of ability to look at the problem at all sides. So can you give us a little bit of the state of the consortium and maybe some of the challenges related to this?
Yeah, Judi, good to see you again. And
yes.
Rick, a pleasure to meet you and a joy to be here. So the consortium, I've already got some good updates for you as a result of an additional investment from the state. We've got 3 new members in addition to the ones that Rick listed. So that's the University of Rochester, the Rochester Institute of Technology, and also the Icahn School of Medicine in Manhattan. And so we've now got 9 participating academic partners who basically cover the entire geography of New York State. Rick did a great job of summarizing Empire AI's mission. So we have sort of like a one-line way to remember it. So AI and HPC for academic research in New York State in the public good. And everything we're doing, we circle back to that. It's been an exciting ride for me joining Empire AI. The project is moving so fast, it's hard to keep track of things. And so the genesis of Empire AI was really, as Rick mentioned, through the vision of Tom Secunda in partner with our academic members. And that was very rapidly embraced by the government and was initiated just in April last year. In July last year, we were incorporated. In October last year, I was hired on, and we also started operating our very first computer that's already doing science. And now we fast forward to this year. We're in the process of identifying and deploying the next generation computer that's going to be 7 to 20 times faster than our current computer. You can think of it as being roughly between 1 and 5 million times faster than your laptop, which sets the scale that we can do things on this that you simply cannot do at home or in your own individual research lab if you're a university faculty member. And that kind of like highlights why these organizations who would normally be competing with each other come together. Together, they can do things, stand up Empire AI that they simply can't do at home. And that gets them and their faculty to the frontier of science.
It's fascinating. Robert, can you take a step back, though, and give us a brief tutorial on what AI is? And certainly you've just shared the beginnings of what its potential looks like.
So yeah, AI is no longer just one thing, right? We sort of like see it as a black box as a consumer. You type in a query to Gemini or ChatGPT or something, and it generates a picture or answers your question. But behind the scenes, there's a whole load of things going on. And I tend to find the word AI a little either overhyped or kind of like misleading, really. It's not intelligence in the way that we understand it. It's a set of algorithms that take large volumes of data and look independently of human guidance for statistical patterns. And those patterns basically then inform the responses that it generates in response to your queries. And a key enabler of its advances is that it can look at large volumes of data that humans can't. And a great example would be the large language models that we're interacting with in ChatGPT. But in science, there's things that go far beyond the large language models. And if you want a great example, it would be Google's development of AlphaFold. So proteins are made from amino acids. And it turns out to be relatively easy to sequence a protein into amino acids because there's automated chemical processes to do that have been known for a long time. But if you're trying to design a drug, say to treat Alzheimer's or something, that sequence isn't very useful to you. What you want to do is know its three-dimensional structure so you can find drugs that interact the way you want them to. And that's been essentially an unsolved challenge for decades. AI, completely out of the blue, unexpected to all scientists, came up and solved that problem. Now, it found patterns that humans just couldn't see. That's a great example, and there are many more examples like that out there.
Fascinating.
So one of the things I find absolutely fascinating, first of all, we are, data is the new gold. It's the new oil. So having access to all this information absolutely is transformative to moving us forward. But one of the key points around AI, and of course we're using that as an umbrella term, but one of the key points, particularly with the large language model and using some of the different tools, is your ability to ask a question or prompt, particularly when it is outside of your knowledge base. So how do you ask an unasked question? And so tell us a little bit about how, from a digital perspective, how it generates the ability to ask these incredibly complex questions that are giving us this kind of, giving us evidence and data that informs our decisions.
So again, what you're touching on is some of the strengths and also some of the weaknesses of AI, right? And so AI, essentially, it's got this vast sea of data, and it has discovered simplistically statistical patterns that are buried in the data, but it's also able to infer relationships. Scientists don't really understand how it represents those relationships, but nevertheless, they do exist in those models. And that means it's sort of, I'm doing air quotes around the word understands, right? And so it understands grammar. It understands the semantics of a sentence, right? It doesn't understand it. These are simply statistical patterns that have emerged, right? Subject, verb, noun. It doesn't know what a subject or a verb is, but it's figured out that one comes before the other. And it's the other way around if you're speaking German. Okay.
Yes.
So it's got that structure, and then it's got the knowledge, and it's doing the same thing with knowledge. It's associating, I don't know, math, homework, go to bed late. I don't know. I mean, you can come up with something. But the fact that it can do all of these is because it's seen a million copies of it in various forms, right? So that need for a vast amount of data gives it that ability. The implicit in that is a significant limitation, and it goes to a part of your question. You ask it an unanswered question.
Yes.
It can't answer that because it hasn't been shown that answer. It's only, and you're going to use a mathematical term here, it's only interpolating in the data set that it's been shown to, meaning it only knows in this space. If you're asking a question outside that space, and this is coming back to what we want to do as scientists, right? That is now where there's a fundamental problem. So it's completely changed our ability and the way we interact with the scientific literature. So multiple times a day, I'm asking it math questions. Right? I have a little chat GPT that I told it, you're a math professor, expert in blah, blah, blah. And so I ask it a question, and it gives me a very technical answer that I'm very confident is going to be correct because it's, again, working in a space that it's seen a lot of data about. But I know very well if I ask it a science or programming question about stuff that is at the frontier of science, it's going to get it wrong.
Yes.
And that comes back to, we're at a university, we're at about students. How should they be using and interacting with AI? And they need to have that same ability to discriminate. You got to practice, you got to be exposed to and encouraged to criticize.
I'd like to talk more about the consortium itself. And you mentioned about all of the universities and entities that are collaborating together. And I'm just curious if you could share a bit more about the current role of both federal and state governments in the evolution of AI. And what do you think that role should look like? And how does the consortium then ultimately maintain and build a relationship with other entities to continue to grow and develop?
Okay, there's lots of facets there. So I think, first off, New York State is at the forefront of this. And the intention of Empire AI was to close the gap between academic research and what is possible in presently privately funded research like you in Microsoft and so on. And that's a massive gap. If you go back just 2 or 3 decades, who was at the forefront of computing? It was actually academics using state-funded supercomputers for open science. But that's not been the case initially with the invention of the cloud, and then more specifically with the massive investments in AI. New York State has consciously made this investment in Empire AI to attract faculty to New York State and have all of the consequential economic benefits, workforce development, spin-off businesses, long list of things that are going to have a long legacy in New York State. We're already seeing at Stony Brook the benefits of this. So in our recruiting of junior and senior faculty in the AI space, they're coming in large part because they know that they can get the resources from Empire AI to do frontier research that they wouldn't be able to do elsewhere. And so in the current era of turmoil in the federal funding for science, this is actually super timely because it's providing an amazing buffer in New York State for our scientists and science to get their job done.
I'm just going to have other states in the country form similar consortiums, and do you see opportunities for partnership beyond New York State?
Yeah, totally. So all of the other states are watching us, in part with envy and also just to see how it's going to unfold. Certainly other states are moving. So right next door to us is New Jersey, and they've got their own smaller initiative. It looks quite different. It's centered in Princeton. There's a bunch of academic and private partners. There's significantly less state funding, and its emphasis is more on the research and industrial engagement rather than providing frontier compute resources. And they've already reached out to us to try and coordinate. And, the same's true in California and Oklahoma. We're at the forefront, and that's a great thing for New York to be able to see at this point.
Going a little different direction, moving into education in the classroom. One of the challenges is really understanding you've got these large language models, you have these incredibly sophisticated algorithms that have the ability to generate knowledge within the base of what it knows. What is the evolution of teaching? And what kind of professional development should be integrated into professional development of teachers or within the teacher education curriculum to understand and measure? How do you measure or look at evidence of knowledge versus tool usage? So when a student uses AI, any of these tools to get their information, how do you assess, or what do you recommend for teaching faculty, teachers, and so on? This is K-12 all the way through higher education, the difference between knowledge and tool usage.
Well, that's I would say, first off, I'm definitely not qualified to answer that question. So I can address it from a couple of perspectives. One is from being in the classroom myself and then also working with people trying to hire students, again, coming out of Stony Brook, right? And so in the classroom, I teach a graduate level course in computational science that we deliberately set up because if you look at students coming into a university, now this is bizarre. I went to university, some number of decades ago, 4 decades ago, right? And so at that time, more people knew how to program than they do now coming in. That's weird. That's really weird. And why is it? It's because you can do so much on a computer now with point and click. And that's going to be exacerbated by AI because now you don't even point and click, you just ask. And so, but how do you develop new tools? How do you do, again, coming back to what we were speaking about before, in science, you want to do something new. And so if you're going to do that, you need to extend an existing tool, make a new tool, come up with new algorithms. And the way to do that is to be able to program. And AI has transformed programming as it has transformed everything else. And so AI is an essential tool, right? So just before this podcast started, Rick was making an analogy to using a calculator, right? Yes. Calculator should be allowed in the classroom. That was a debate about in our generation. Now AI clearly is an essential tool. And people need to be expert in that tool because they need it for their future careers. It's just there. And so we need to be teaching in the context of programming people how to use that in a way that, again, enables them to build on it. And a key aspect of what I kept emphasizing was concern of being de-skilled, right? You're using AI as a crutch. You eventually are not going to be successful in your career because somebody else is still going to be better at using the AI, better at making pivotal design decisions that the AI is presently ill-equipped to do. Circling back to who do people want to hire, they want to have people that have a complete rounded skill set. And that aspect of being complete also circles back to having a theoretical understanding of how the AI is working and also why it might fail. And that includes, understanding how was the AI trained and why might that training lead to biases in what it's giving you or just complete misinformation.
Robert, I'm curious among faculty you interact with how they have viewed AI in their classroom setting. My sense is that there was more resistance, and now it's become a level of acceptance or maybe integration in classes. And are there effective ways that you've seen faculty integrate AI? And to your point around, and Judi was mentioning around skills, we don't want graduates of Stony Brook or any university to not have the skills, for example, in writing ability. And the view of if AI takes over that function, are you lacking those skills upon graduation? So, which I wonder if that is leading to some of the resistance.
It certainly is, and I think I'm in a technical field, so the emphasis on, say, writing essays has not really been present in what I teach. But nevertheless, when it comes to science careers, the number one tool is communication. If you can't communicate it, it didn't happen. If you can't communicate it, it won't have impact. And so in IACS, when we first started, we have some student awards that we give out, and we had a bimodal distribution of applications. A few were crystal clear, very well written, and the rest were basically unable to really communicate the significance or passion or joy in what they do. And so we started various engagements, including with the Alan Alda Center here for communicating science, because it's all about being able to sit across the table from somebody and tell them what they need to know, right?
One thing I think is interesting, and you just touched on it, is understanding how the AI was trained. And I wonder, because these algorithms are incredibly sophisticated and complex. And so when you think about the type of answers that, your whatever tool you're using is giving you. And maybe you reconcile that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about a digital twin, but how you reconcile what the AI tool came up with what, a human would have come up with. And then you see there's a disparity. So how can you recreate back to that initial parent string of code to understand or the sequence of information that made the ultimate, these answers start to be relevant or even start to skew to bias? How do you recreate how we got there?
That's an open area of research right now under the general umbrella of explainable AI. And a large chunk of what's driving it are people wanting to apply AI in high-risk settings.
Yes.
Open heart surgery, operating a nuclear reactor. You can list a long set of things that you absolutely want the AI to be doing the right thing for the right reasons, rather than doing it for essentially an incorrect reason, so that if an unexpected circumstance turns up, it's going to do the wrong thing. And that's an unsolved problem right now. Mm-hmm. And part of it is also related to the sheer scale of data that current AI needs. And in many settings, that data doesn't exist. So if you say, again, looking at open heart surgeries, how many have been done? How many been recorded in enough detail that you can train a robot to do it? Mm-hmm. Now you need models that can learn on smaller amounts of data and also incorporate what we humans know. In physics and chemistry, my own space, we know the laws of physics and chemistry. We can write them down. So we can constrain those models. But in other settings, you don't have that ability. So these are all open questions.
Robert, I think at a recent presentation you were sharing a number of SUNY projects related to that. Can you highlight a few of those key projects that are underway?
Yeah, I'll try. I don't have my list in front of me. So I'll take that. That's great. Thanks. He's given me a cheat sheet here. Appreciated it. So I'll circle back briefly to the one I was talking about Alzheimer's. So somebody is trying to design a drug to look at treating Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, and again using AlphaFold to help them understand the structure of proteins. Now, we're used in our own interactions with, say, ChatGPT and so on, to using large language models and sort of generative approaches. This is a different application of AI, so it's sort of using inference, and that is basically inputting a query into a pre-trained model and receiving an answer, and being able to do so really, really fast. So that way you can explore a massive set of design options and thereby do things that you simply couldn't do with more conventional computing. Jeremy Blackburn is a great example. So from Binghamton University. So Jeremy researches online hate speech, specifically anti-Semitic speech. And he's got a great example of research that he's been doing using Empire AI. He started doing this at home on his own computing resources at Binghamton and projected that it would take several years to get the job done. And instead, using Empire AI, he's managed to get some of this work done in just a few days or weeks.
Wow.
And that acceleration is uniformly great for advancing science. It doesn't just mean that you're doing it faster. It means you're now able to ask larger and deeper questions. And I would circle back to that being the characteristic of researchers making effective use of AI. You're able to ask questions that are more impactful and are larger than you could without it.
I think what's absolutely fascinating, the comparative of what you thought would take months, that you're able to do it in days. and the ability to even expedite that. And so our ability to continue to ask these questions and get information almost real time has got to be really almost alarming, because you're getting so much information. In a way, how do you have the discipline to not keep probing the question, but actually standing in the data as it presents real time and letting that kind of be evidence and data driving your decisions versus just rapid firing asking questions?
Well, I guess as a scientist, it's not alarming. It's joyful, right? I say it's a completely different way of interacting with knowledge, right? And so, again, in my own disciplines that sit at the intersection of physics, chemistry, and applied math and computing, no one person can know all of that. And the AI itself doesn't, again, in air quotes, know it, but it gives you the ability to interact with that knowledge at a much higher level. This still comes back to the training of students. You can't get an answer to a question without knowing what the question is. And how do you know what question to ask if you don't know what the answer is?
Right.
And so the students need that firm and broad foundation. But maybe now the emphasis is a bit more on breadth and depth. That's one question that relates to education. But coming back to the science, I think, again, your question said, how do you know when to stop, right? And
Not stop.
Well, I think the answer is how do you know when you've wandered off where truth is and you're into fiction?
Yes. Right. Yeah. We hope our listeners find these discussions informative and empowering as we navigate these times together. Thank you so much, Robert, for your incredible thoughtfulness and the information that you've provided. This is an ongoing conversation.
It certainly is. And Robert, thank you so much, too, for your leadership, not only at Stony Brook, but also leading the Empire AI Consortium. I think it speaks volumes about your just incredibly hard work in this area and the amazing opportunities that lie ahead of us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you both. It's been a joy today, and I think this podcast is a boon for the Stony Brook community, so thank you.
Well, we enjoy doing it, so thank you so much. So to our listeners, just join us next time as we explore women's health, maternal health, and men's health. So for now, I'm Rick Gatteau.
And I'm Judi Brown Clarke, and thank you for tuning in.